Return, O virgin daughter of Israel, to these your highways by which you went. Welcome to Reunion Roadmap, a place to discover the people and communities along the highway of restoration for Israel's house of Joseph. Reunion Roadmap is a B'nai Yosef North America production. Be our guest for the next hour as we meet the people of the emerging house of Joseph here in North America. Shalom, this is Safani Pappas with B'nai Yosef North America, and with me is Al McCarn, our Executive Director, and we're going to part 3 in our interview with Beverly Hall, otherwise known as Bev from North Carolina. Is that right, Al?
Yes, that's right. Now we will pick up this segment at the place where she left off in the second segment, where she's talking about the spreading cancer of anti-Semitism. The story that she tells is one that caught me off guard, quite frankly, and surprised me about a middle school student in rural North Carolina who has this tremendously anti-Semitic attitude that comes out in a class setting. And it seems it's not just this student, but the whole class. I'll tell you, Stefania, I have experienced some of this as well among our young people that I get to interact with frequently. And it seems that they just do not know. The younger people, meaning teenagers and in their 20s and 30s, they just don't understand what is right and what is a blatant lie regarding Israel. Have you seen the same thing?
Actually, I've been quite refreshed what I'm seeing here in the middle school that I work at. And I've been sitting in on one particular social studies class, and the teacher had actually she went to a museum, Jewish museum, the Bremen Museum, and there was a program going on there. And so she went there because she wanted to be herself even more educated than she was, and really took the time to share with the students about the Holocaust and what that was all about, and the significance of that and what that means in regard to what's going on currently today. And then it was interesting that just recently she had a substitute teacher, and the substitute teacher was doing the same thing, extremely pro-Israel, talking about what's going on over there in Israel and advocating for Israel. And so I've had different teachers within the middle school approach me and say, I see what's going on there in Israel. And they were saying to me, they have every right to defend themselves. I don't understand why this is going on, why our government is trying to get in the way of that, So it's been very refreshing to know that I'm in a place where people have some understanding and have a real good view of Israel that's real healthy. So
yes, but we still have responsibility to help our young people understand.
Oh, yes. Yep.
And we will hear that from Bev Hall. So let's go on back and listen to the last part of our conversation.
This woman, she was invited by a middle school in a country town, a few counties over, to talk to the 7th graders about the Holocaust. So she's talking about the Holocaust, and this one child gets up and goes, well, you know about Syria, and you know about Jordan, right? She goes, yes. And then he goes, well, you know about the Palestinians and that the Jews are committing genocide. And she was devastated. And she said, that's enough, I'm leaving. And the teachers are like, no, no, no. But all the kids started clapping because he brought this up. Now, this is a little town out in the middle of nowhere, but that anti-Semitism is spreading like a cancer. So I've always felt we need to have relationships with Jews in this United States, because I knew it would happen again. And it's happening.
Yeah, it is. Even in my interaction with people on our side of the family, the Christian side, it's amazing what people do not know. And the source of their news, well, they never even really thought about who's putting out that which they are consuming. So what this middle school student said in the middle of nowhere in the North Carolina, it is shocking, but it's more common than we think. So that makes sense why the Lord has positioned this strange part of his body, us Torah-keeping Christians, Hebraic Christians, however you want to call us, to know both sides of the story, both sides of the family, and be able to talk the language that each can understand. So, what's the most important thing that we have to deal with right now? I mean, you just touched on one. the the attitudes of our young people and the knowledge or lack of knowledge of our young people. But, and let me just ask this, is that the most important issue we have right now in the spring of 2024 as Israel is waging a war for its own existence and God is doing things to change this world in ways we have never seen?
I think so. And I think we have to adjust ourselves. And you know this because you've dealt with the younger generation to how can we talk to them about this very issue? Because they're hearing all the terrible things, and we know it's the media. We know it's AI that's doing it. In fact, I heard today that if you put something out there on X, you get an immediate response with charts and why you're wrong. And the person talking about it said, "Oh, that's all predetermined. They're looking for a word, and then they're going to crush you." Which, if you study the 30s in Germany, that's the tactic. It's all about propaganda. So how can we overcome the propaganda that's being pushed? And in my own family, there's a division. I see it in the church. I see it in the Messianic congregation. We have to have some good answers, and they have to be quick because they're not going to sit around and listen to a whole lot of stuff.
Yeah, and I know that's my problem as I'm the historical guy. So I will be glad to give you a 30-minute or 90-minute lecture on how what's happening to the Jews today is what has been happening to the Jews since the time of Moses in Egypt. But that's not what they need. They need the sound bites, and they need those sound bites that are rooted in the understanding of that 90-minute lecture of where this has all happened before. So how do we get there?
Well, Al, you and I have discussed this. You asked somebody who knew a lot about the Bible, who does the land of Judea and Samaria belong to? And their response was, "I don't know."
Yeah.
So how do we respond to that? So good questions, I think, and some very quick kind of answers that'll get them to think.
That's it. I mean, we got to where we are because God used different methods to cause us to think and ask questions and look into the scriptures for ourselves. But yeah, and we have in our Sabbath keeping congregations people who have come into this walk because they're seeing that the church, while not actually wrong on many things, missed this part. So they're studying for themselves. They had the questions and they're digging it out for themselves. So they come to this Sabbath keeping congregation. But they still might not understand about Israel, about the Jewish people being the heart and soul of Israel and the physical remnant of Abraham's seed, to which we are grafted in, not the other way around. The traditional Christian church, well, I can think of my brother's pastor, for example, a wonderful man of God, who recently wrote a pamphlet about Israel in which he put so many of his questions in there and was trying to be very honest and walk a fine line between full support of the Jewish state regardless and wait a minute, I'm not sure that the Jews are supposed to be there. Now, this man, and by the way, this man, this Baptist pastor, is one who has purposefully cultivated relationships with the Jewish community in his city. But I would say right now, he's the exception because traditional Sunday Christians, well, Israel is still a concept out there, like it was to you before 1967 when you're at college and encountering Jewish friends who are weeping over headlines in the newspaper. And I think I just answered my question, Beb, so thank you. How do we get those soundbite answers? Well, by sharing our experience. And you've got a wealth of experience in Israel, here in the States, with Jewish people of so many different backgrounds. So this may be a hard question to answer, but in the last couple of years especially, what results, what progress have you seen in this process of just being there, answering questions, and helping people to think through the issues?
It's incremental, slow.
Mm.
But I realize if I go any faster, then they're ready. But every once in a while, I have to throw a wrench in the monkey works. I'll give you an example. So my son-in-law is an elder in the church where I teach the children. And so he said, people often ask me because I'm new, like, what's it like? What are some of the problems that you're facing? And he said, well, mostly it's not theological, although they asked me a lot of questions about that. He said, it's like somebody got upset with somebody and you have to put out fires. I said, so it would be the only time theological will come up is when you have a teacher and maybe they're not teaching what is in your doctrine. He goes, exactly. So I said, well, maybe your mother-in-law will be in front of your board one day. And he goes, what? And so I related about the questions the children had about Christmas and the holidays and the Sabbath being the seventh day. Well, my daughter came up right away and said, well, how do they know it's the Sabbath? It could be any day. The Sabbath could have moved around. So that was good. I said, look into that. I said, do some research because I've done it and I think they're pretty right on. Well, what did I do the next moment? I ran in to make sure what I'm talking about because it is complicated. When you look at the two calendars, how they're matching up this year, not at all. And that they're minutes off. And over the decades, these minutes add up over the centuries, really. But I thought the best answer was Chabad saying, listen, for 40 years, we knew when the Sabbath was. And he said, we never stopped celebrating. Maybe one person or another might forget, but not the collective whole. They are going to know the Sabbath. So I think it's things like that we need to be able to say, let's look at it. Let's investigate it together. And let's talk about it. But it's very hard when someone's been so indoctrinated.
Right. The heart has to be right. And the only way that we're going to know that is if we have a relationship. And
yes.
I certainly agree with you. It's got to be incremental. You cannot take someone to a place they're not willing to go yet. But, I had a conversation just recently in this past week where a friend was asking me, why is it that Easter and Passover are a month apart this year, but they were right together last year? And praise God, I'd been in this long enough and studied the calendar issues that I could give her an answer that she was ready for and appreciated. But that required relationship. And if we can get to that point on a relatively innocuous question of why is it Easter and Passover are a month apart, then we can get to those more difficult questions. With our Jewish friends, well, why do you believe that Jesus is the Messiah? With our Christian friends, well, why is it you don't celebrate Christmas the way we do? We have to get to the point where we are so secure in our identity that we do not feel threatened by their questions.
Exactly. That's right, because we're the older generation and they're the younger generation. And I was there and we thought we knew it all. And we don't want an older generation coming and telling us what they believe. Okay, so what do? We respect and we serve. I submit to these younger people and I'll do it your way. It's okay. I don't have to push myself on anything. I might have an idea here and there, but I just want to help you out. I just want to love you. And that takes a couple of years. It's taken me a couple of years with FIT and with the synagogue several years. But they need now they need to know Christians love them. And if by any opportunity I can go back to Israel and serve in some way to help out, I want to do that.
Well, the need is certainly there. You've mentioned in previous conversations about grief share and how you see that could be of benefit in an Israel that right now is suffering national trauma again. We do have a lot that we can share. But one thing is we have to get to the point that we're willing to share it and contribute what we have without judgment and without expectations, but just out of that humble love.
Yep. Because I think when we have that extravagant love towards others, they're going to see who our God is.
Mm.
It's not about arguments. It's about serving and loving Him and serving them. That's the key.
It certainly is. I'm thinking of Paul's statement that he becomes all things to all people, if by any means he might save some, which how do we interpret that with the experience I've had and what we're talking about now? You're doing it. you're being someone that a Sunday Christian can relate to. You're being someone that a Messianic believer who worships on Shabbat can relate to. You're being someone that a Jewish person can relate to. You're being all things to all people. Let's see, how do we interpret that part so that you can save some? Well, in the Christian context, I think that is interpreted as bring them to Jesus. Okay, I'm not going to say that's wrong, but I would say there's more to it, such as get to the point where you can actually touch a need and help and save in a certain situation, like where there's trauma, like where there's suffering, like where there is an abandoned child who needs a home. How are they going to let us in if they don't trust us?
Right. And the Lord will show you places where you can meet one of their needs and do something for them. Taking them out to lunch, finding out if they have a difficulty at home, ministering to a Jewish woman who's a widow, things like that. But the key is you got to get out there. You've got to get out of your comfort zone. And of course, being a widow thrown out into the unknown, I just realized I have to forge ahead. There's nowhere to retreat to. There's no little comfy covers to pull over my head. It's now or never.
It certainly is. Now, Bev, as we're winding up our time together, I just want to recap a couple of things that you have shared with us. You're a widow. You're in your mid-70s. You're still going. You still have something to contribute, and you want to make sure that you do this. That in itself is a testimony to people who need to hear. You're not giving up on life, and you are finding ways for the outlets that the Lord is putting right in front of you. So let me ask if you have any final words to impart. What's the greatest thing that you would like our hearers to take away from our conversation?
Well, let me just tell you about an upcoming opportunity. Our last girls club, 4th, 5th grade, is meeting on the 23rd, which is Tuesday, which sun will not be down. So it'll be Passover. So I said to the leader over all the children, hey, what it would be like if we had Passover on our front porch, had these kids over. And she was excited. She said, yes, I've done Passover with my children. Let's do that. So I've been preparing the kids for months. I said, look at the moon. We can tell when Passover is coming by the moon. And, I'm getting them used to the moon is our clock. God put it in the sun and the moon and the stars up there to show us when the Moedim are. So I'm really looking forward to that. That's going to be exciting.
Oh, yes. And as we're recording now, in the first part of April, you got 3 weeks, but what an exciting thing. Seems to me the opportunities are there. It's just up to us to discern them. Yeah.
Yeah. Like the Lord said, if there's the pearls or the diamonds or whatever, the treasures, you need to go out there and dig. They're not just going to pop up for you. You got to go searching for them and then wait. Be a good fisherman.
Amen. Wait. That's another key point. Well, I think we'll have to leave it there, Bev, but this has been a delightful conversation. Thank you so much for sharing of your life's experience and a lot of your hope and your joy that the Lord is giving you, even now, at this stage of life when a lot of people will just turn inward. But you're not. You're still looking out to be a contributing member of his kingdom. So on behalf of all us younger people, thank you. Thank you for giving us that example.
Oh, you're welcome. And thanks for letting me talk.
Here is Tremble, O Earth, Psalm 114 by Teshuvah from their album Hallel, available at teshuvahmusic.com.
Step back, heart attack. Watch what he's about to do. He's gonna break them loose from Pharaoh's noose. Watch, this is something new. Jordan shuffle to the right. Red Sea shuffle to the left. Jordan shuffle to the right. Red Sea shuffle to the left. He's gonna make these mountains skip like rams, and then you're gonna see what's tremble over. Tremble over. Tremble over. Tremble over. What ails you? Oh, see that you flee, and Jordan that you turn back. Are you afraid it's he who's coming at thee like a freight train off the tracks?
He's got the mountains skipping like rams, the hills like lambs, to the sound of the jam of the seas and the land, as he make way for his people coming up out of bondage and slavery.
Jordan shuffle to the right. Red Sea shuffle to the left. Jordan shuffle to the right. Red Sea shuffle to the left. He's gonna make these mountains skip like rams, and then you're gonna see what's tremble over. Tremble over. Tremble over. Tremble over.
When Israel went forth from Egypt, the house of Jacob from the people of strange language, Judah became his sanctuary, Israel his dominion. The sea looked and fled, the Jordan turned back, the mountains skipped like rams, the hills like lambs. What ails you, O sea, that you flee? O Jordan, that you turn back? O mountains, that you skip like rams? O hills like lambs? Tremble, O earth, before the Lord, before the God of Jacob, who turned the rock into the pool of water, the flint into the fountain of water.
Tremble over. Tremble over. Tremble over. Tremble over.
Shalom, everyone. Welcome to the Midrash portion of today's Reunion Roadmap. This is Barry Phillips, and with me today is David Jones in Florida. David, how are you, sir?
Shalom, brother. Doing pretty good.
All right. David had a thought. Imagine that. The recent Passover, Pesach season has brought a thought to mind. I want to share it with you and get your input. And the instructions that Moshe gave to Israel leading up to the event of that night. Of course, we understand you are to select the lamb, you are to examine the lamb, you are to slay the lamb between the evenings on the 14th day of the month, and then you are to apply blood to your doorpost and lintel, eat the lamb, dressed, staff in hand, shoes on feet, ready to go. Then the information was the destroyer, the messenger of death, is going to pass through, and at risk was the firstborn of every home in the land, not just among the Hebrews, but also the Mitzrites or the Egyptians. I'm thinking, David, that in modern doctrinal persuasions, modern theologies, Israel might be thoroughly criticized because they didn't go and broadcast through the land a warning. And we're not told that they did. We assume that they did not. Yah intended this to be judgment. If they didn't go through the land as a herald and explain what was going on, modern day theology would criticize them. How could you be so cruel? How could you not say anything? But they were not instructed to be a herald. They were not instructed to do any of that. They were just told what to do. And in their community, those who obeyed were spared the death of their firstborn. I'm kind of wondering where your input would be on this, or the idea of Ezekiel being a watchman on the wall. If you don't say anything, blood will be on your hands when you see judgment coming. Is that only for Israel? Does that apply to the nations? If we see judgment coming to America, are we supposed to be a herald, or are we supposed to be quiet? What do you think?
I think it's kind of a loaded question.
You're welcome.
there's a lot that can really be said in there, and yeah, what's your thought, Barry? No, I'm kidding. When it came time for them to come out of Mitzrayim, for them to be delivered, for them to be redeemed, Yahweh said when He brought them out, this was an act of redemption, and I'm thinking about, so how are they to observe? How are they to do these things? How is it supposed to happen for them? And I'm thinking back to Exodus chapter 12, Shemot chapter 12, when it said, this is the ordinance for the Passover. No foreigner may eat of it.
Oh, you're right.
He says, so, and even goes on to talk about, even the, like hired servants. In other words, like even your employees and those who work in your household, and all the congregation of Israel must keep it. But if there's an outsider who wants to observe Passover, he is to be circumcised, which is, we talk about circumcision. It's not the circumcision itself. The circumcision was a sign of the covenant, not the covenant itself. So, in other words, they would have to be a member of Israel to partake in Pesach. Now, put that back in the first time this happened. Even those of Mitzrayim had their eyes open for what was going on. We know that they knew things were happening. The plagues, this was the last one. So, there was 9 before it, right? And Pharaoh's inner court was telling him, come on, let him go. And there was, I'm sure, an uprising among the people. Let Israel go, because we've had enough of this. And, there's different things you read about the story. And then when Israel came out, there were those who had joined with them when they came out. So I'm thinking along the lines of this. When Yahweh sends judgment even into the land, it was a matter of judgment is being decreed on those who had already made their decision. Not a matter of, okay, I really mean it now. Okay, now wait, I'm going to count to 3. 1, 2, hold on. I mean it. 1, 2, 2, 2.5, 2. There came a time when, like those 9 plagues, there came a time when you got a decision. Either you're going to join with Israel and the God of Israel, or you're not. And
so let me break in here, David. Is that where we're living right now, with Israel being a dividing rod between not only the nations but people inside nations?
Yeah, I think it could be. I think, and that's a dangerous thing to think about. And there's a lot to speculate there. But I mean, my opinion for what it is. We are seeing these things happening where people are having to make a decision if we're going to stand with the God of Israel, not just stand with Israel, stand with the God of Israel. Even back to the burning bush incident, when Yahweh is speaking to Moshe, he says, I am the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Yitzhak, the God of Yaakov. This is my name. This is how I am to be remembered forever. So he is the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, whose name is Israel. He is the God of Israel. At the mountain, we see the phrase, and they saw the God of Israel. That's the very first time that phrase was used, the God of Israel, at Mount Sinai. And this is who Yahweh himself said, this is who I am. And so if we say, we serve the one true God, we serve the one and only Elohim, Yahweh, then we're saying we are serving the God of Israel. And Yahweh has not forsaken Israel. He has not left them.
So let's go a little further in what you just said there, David. He is the mighty one of Israel.
Yes.
He is not the mighty one of the nations. In other words, there is a covenant that he made with Abraham that was carried on through the patriarchs and then through into Israel that is required to have a relationship with him. Now, it's popularly preached in our day, well, we are living according to the new covenant. More correctly, that's the renewed covenant of the previous covenant. It's one and the same covenant. So we can't really be detached from the original covenant. Matter of fact, the offering of between the pieces, where Abraham was told to slay animals and lay them in halves opposite each other. Right. That blood path that was walked for Abraham, that's the root of our redemption in Messiah. It goes right back to that moment. That's another broadcast. But where I'm going with this, if Yahweh is the Elohim, the mighty one of Israel, covenant Israel, can you then be with Yahweh without being a part of Israel? Or how can we walk with Israel or with Yahweh but not support Israel? Not understanding modern day expression of Israel as a sovereign state. We're not saying that they are a perfect state, or that they have righteous prophets that are the administrators of their government. We're not saying that. But can we stand against Israel but stand with Yahweh?
Mm-hmm. I do believe so. It's like we're standing with Yahweh even though we don't agree with everything that's happening within Israel, the place itself, because even in the land, there are many righteous and unrighteous among Israel, within Israel, in the land. And just like any place that we have, there are many righteous and many unrighteous. And even in many communities of Yahweh, there are righteous, there are unrighteous. we have to be careful that we're not so quick to throw out these quick judgments where Yahweh has not judged. And when he has judged, our place is a call for mercy, a call for repentance, but he's the one who's got to take care of that. Much like Abraham, when he appeared and he said he was about to go down to Sodom, and Abraham was making intercession here because he knew Lot was down there. We should desire for people to repent, but there comes a place and a time where Yahweh says, I'm going to go through there and I'm looking for the ones that are mine. And who are we going to stand with when this happens? That's like reading recently the incident with Nadav and Abihu, a similar kind of thing. If this was to happen today, these were righteous people, by the way. But if what had happened to them happened today, there would be a massive outcry. Well, they were just trying to worship. They were just trying to do the things that in their own way and the things they understood and the things but it's like, okay, but that's not the way Yahweh said to do that. And as a holy people, you're to safeguard the holy things. And so here, Israel as a nation is to safeguard the holy things. And we see throughout the history of Israel, there was an exile and a return, an exile and a return, an exile and a return. Yahweh, I don't think that Yahweh says, in the history that we see of Israel, where Yahweh said that, all of Israel is righteous. No, but he's called them to be righteous. He has called them Yesharun. He has called them righteous, upright. And he said his desire for them is to walk in that righteousness that he has called. And so I think we see, even though with many of the things we say, okay, there's things happening in Israel, modern day Israel, that I don't agree with. I would say, same here. But it doesn't relieve the fact that Yahweh has called them his people, much like let's turn the table on ourselves. There are things within each of us that is not perfect, and things that we do is not perfect, but it doesn't mean we're supposed to be obliterated all in one shot. Yahweh has mercy on us too. And Yahweh calls us to walk with him daily as well. We should have that same call towards all of the people of Yahweh.
I can't see that Israel, let's be more specific, our brother Yehuda would be inspired to hear what we have to say if we turned our back to them. It's kind of hard to listen to somebody who refuses to relate with you because they're of a different opinion of you at some point. You have to have a willing conversation at some point between yourselves, and that requires a relationship. So, I mean, you have to face them and stand with them in order to have the conversation that both of us can probably benefit from. It's not as though this is going to be a one-way street here. One real quick thought here, David, and get your thought before we close up today. Moshe represents the Torah. It was from Moshe that these instructions came. If one was saying, I don't want to listen to Moshe, that is, I don't want to hear the Torah, then they would not have accepted the instructions that would have spared the life of their firstborn. So those who say, I don't want to listen to the Torah, I don't believe that Moshe speaks to us today, I don't think the Torah is for us today. That is to say then that they believe that Yeshua came with another doctrine. And Yochanan, or John 14, verse number 10, he says, the words that I speak to you, I do not speak from myself, but the Father who stays in me. So Yeshua did not come with a different doctrine than his Father. He came speaking what the Father said. So to claim, well, I listen to Yeshua, not Moshe, that's an erroneous road to walk down, is it not?
It is, because everything of Moshe testifies of Yeshua. And even we see, like we've been on the road to Emmaus, where Yeshua opened up the scriptures with the Torah and the prophets and revealed to these men on the road to Emmaus about the Messiah, and then revealed that it was him. The entirety of the word is the word, not just the portions we like.
You can't say it any more succinctly than that. Wow. Well, David, we're up against the time wall here. We do appreciate everyone listening to us, sharing your thoughts and questions. If you have those, you can send them to reunionroadmap@bneiyosefna.com. Been a great time with you, David. I hope to see you next week.
Well, brother.
From Solomon Lopez and the Hebraism Music Project, here is How Could We? Available at Hebraism.org.
By the rivers of Babylon, there we sat down and we wept as we remember Sion. And all the promises we made that were not kept. And our captors asked us for the words of a song, and they mocked us, saying, sing to us a song of Sion. Sing to us a song of Sion. How could we sing your songs on foreign land? Oh, why didn't we turn our backs on your plan? By the shores of America, we now sit back and marvel at the towers we've built. Oh, but without you we're blinded by fear. And now we rule each other with guilt. Oh, how could we call this place a new promised land? Oh, why didn't we turn our backs on your plan? Oh, how could we ever sing your songs on foreign land? Oh, why didn't we change the words of your plan? One day we'll all wake up and remember the words to your songs, and you wipe away our tears, and you'll dwell with us again in Sion. How could we? Oh, how could we?
Well, that was the music of Solomon Lopez. How could we? And before that, Teshuvah with their version of Psalm 114, Tremble, O Earth. And these are songs that have to do with the Exodus, the Passover. We're as we're recording now, halfway from Passover to Shavuot. So we're in the middle of counting the Omer. So when we look back and think about what our ancestors of Israel were doing at this time, well, they're still wandering through the desert toward Sinai. And so the subject is relevant and it's timely. Now, the Passover judgment, that's the subject of the Midrash Barry and David brought us. Sophania, the opening question we have basically is, was God fair in this 10th plague, not issuing the specific instructions so they could be broadcast to the whole land of Egypt, but kind of keeping it just within the Israelites? So how could the Egyptians have any idea the way that they could be saved? Maybe that gets to a larger question, Sophania. Is God fair?
The word fair is probably not even a really good word to say. Is he righteous? And that means, does he do the right thing all the time? And yes, he does. And so because he's righteous and because he's holy, of course, there is going to be this. There's going to be. It was broadcasted throughout the land of Egypt. I mean, we have these plagues that affected the entire land of Egypt, and so this was progressing. And some say over a year's time, possibly, that these plagues took place. And so it got out that these were judgments on the land of Egypt from the God of Israel. And so when it comes to the final one, we hear about this mixed multitude of others who were not Israelites at all. And they actually decided, we're putting the blood on our doorpost too, and we're going to be participating in this whole thing. So if it got through to them, it certainly probably got through to some Egyptians too. And that was probably why they call them mixed multitude, because there's Egyptians thrown in there too.
Yeah, you could call this an anomaly, but it's not, because throughout Scripture we see examples of this. How about Rahab in the city of Jericho?
Exactly. There's another one.
Yes. So word got out, and God had said, don't you make peace with these people, go in, conquer the land, eradicate everyone. And somehow Rahab finds a way to cling to life because she clings to the people of God and therefore the God of Israel. We could talk about the Gibeonites and their underhanded way of making a treaty with Joshua so that they could be spared. But I have heard one pastor say, they were looking for life and they saw the only way that they could acquire or remain alive was to reach out to the Hebrews. And who else? Ittai the Gittite, a Philistine, and loyal to David. Uriah the Hittite, loyal to David. So, yeah, and Paul even says that in his Acts 17 speech in Athens, where he says that God has a witness and no one was without excuse. So the question is, are you going to respond to that witness that goes out through the heavens and the earth declaring the glory of God? And the many messengers he has sent able to reach people in whatever learning style they have. We could say it's complicated, but most definitely, God is not unfair. You're right. He is righteous. And he wants all the world to be righteous like he is. Well, that's going to do it for this edition of Reunion Roadmap. Thank you for listening. And if you are interested and want to learn more about B'nai Yosef North America, go to our website, B'naiYosefNA.com, BNEYYOSEFNA.com. And check out our donate button as well. If you are so moved, we would be honored if you would partner with us. So on behalf of Sophania Pappas and Barry Phillips and David Jones, this is Al McCarn. Shavua Tov.
Thank you for joining us on the Reunion Roadmap, a production of B'nai Yosef North America. Please come back next week for another visit. with the people of the emerging House of Joseph here in North America.